In the bad times, he doesn't want us to say, Lord, you're such a jerk for doing this to me. But he wants us to say, Lord, you are still good, even among all of this. And in the good times, he doesn't want us to go, oh, we're going to put our, all of our pride in ourselves and not in the Lord. So he constantly wants us coming back to him. Hey, and welcome to Bible 365. I am your host, Kathy Carter, and I'm bringing you the Bible in a year, which means I'm reading it every day, and I am sharing my thoughts with you, sharing what I believe that it says, sharing what I believe it means, why it matters, how it fills our relationship with the Lord, how it makes sense, how it is true, and all of the other things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I am hoping that you guys read along as well. So I don't want to be doing this solo. I want you to be reading as well, having your own thoughts in your head before you come and listen. So I am using the 1 Year Chronological Bible, which is available online for free as a free printable download. It is at oneyearbibleonline.com. And so today is day 241. It is August 28th, and our reading today is Lamentations 5, Obadiah, 2 Kings 25, 22 through 26, and Jeremiah 47 through 41. It is a relatively big reading, and we're kind of all over the place with a few different things. So I'm now in this stage in the game where I try and do a quick 2-minute history, so you have a little bit of background, especially if you've never been here before, or if you just need a little upkeep. If you don't need it, you can fast forward for 2 minutes. So we are in the nation of Jerusalem. This is where we find ourselves today. This is the land of Israel, which is in current day Israel, and it is in the southern section of current day Israel. The Lord is the Father to these people. He is their God. He is the God that dwells among them. And so that doesn't mean he's not the God of the entire universe. He still is the God of the entire universe, but he has chosen this people group to represent him on earth, to be his ambassadors, to show the rest of the world exactly who he is, in order for them to follow him. So there's always a point and purpose. He wants the entire world to know who he is, to turn to him, to turn to the light of who he is, and to follow him. And that's what the Israelites were planned for. Like their entire plan was to be sort of this light in the world, that the entire world can see who the Lord is. And they go, oh, these people are the people who follow the maker of the universe. Therefore, I want to follow the maker of the universe, because what's happening is everything is going well for them. It all looks good. It doesn't seem to be working out that way. So people being what they are, and unfortunately extremely sinful, they keep turning away from the Lord, and God keeps getting more and more frustrated with them. And he's like, I expect that of other people, because I'm not dwelling in their midst, but I'm dwelling with you. My temple is with you. And so because you are not following me, and because you are being sort of so dirty in all of your things, I have to punish you, so you will turn back to me, so you will recognize who I am, and you stop turning to all of these other gods, because you're trying to get something out of them instead of just leaning on me and following me. And so the nation of Israel was taken away by Assyria about 500 years ago. I'm sorry, about 150 years ago. And now the nation of Judah, which is the bottom section of Israel, has been taken away by the Babylonians. And so the Babylonians are, in some ways, so what they've done is they've taken away most of the entire nation of Judah. They've left a couple of stragglers, and mostly the poorest of the poor are still living there. They're working the vineyards, they're working the fields, but everybody else, really anyone of note, is gone. And all of the upper echelon people of the Israelites have all been killed, including their king and all of the elders and most of the priests, right? So the first half that they took into exile, they're still alive. But the second half that was dwelling in Jerusalem, King Nebuchadnezzar killed all of those people. So this is where we find ourselves. Jeremiah is a prophet, and he is living in, he's still in Jerusalem. He has chosen to stay in Jerusalem and live in someone's house, and he is lamenting. So he's sad. He's bringing out sad poetry, and he is reaching out to the Lord and saying, remember us. We are desolate. We are so awful, but we did all of this ourselves. But then we see this little bit of a turn in chapter 4, where he's like, hey, remember who we are. You haven't dealt with anyone as harshly as you've dealt with us. You never even dealt with Sodom as harshly as you've dealt with us. And he says, please bring us back. And now we bring ourselves into chapter 5, which is where we start today. So chapter 5 starts like this. Remember, Lord, what has happened to us. So again, he's sort of following in that chapter 4 where he's calling out to the Lord. Remember, look and see our disgrace. Like they've just been in horrible times. And as I went over yesterday, they're not really eating. There's a severe famine that's happening. And so they barely have any work to keep them alive. They have to go out in order to find food. They don't have money to pay for food. So it's just a really bad place. People are actually dying of starvation. And so he says, our inheritance has been turned over to strangers. And in verse 9, it says, we get our bread at the risk of our lives. So, like, the only thing that they have to feed them, they have to risk their lives to go get that because of the sword in the desert. Because anytime they leave, there's a threat of death against them. Everyone is against them at this point. Our skin is as hot as an oven, feverish from hunger. So they're so hungry that they are actually sick because of it. Women have been violated. Virgins in the towns of Judah, right? Young men toil in the millstones. So like little boys are working to the bone in order just to eat bread. It says the crown has fallen on our head. Joy has gone from our hearts. You, Lord, reign forever. So he's lamenting. He's saying how sad it all is, but he's not forgetting the Lord. This is what the Lord wants with all of us. So the way Jeremiah is reacting is actually is what the Lord wants. He wants us to cry out to him. He wants us not to forget him in the good times or in the bad times. In the bad times, he doesn't want us to say, Lord, you're such a jerk for doing this to me. But he wants us to say, Lord, you are still good, even among all of this. And in the good times, he doesn't want us to go, oh, we're going to put our all of our pride in ourselves and not in the Lord. So he constantly wants us coming back to him. So he says, you, Lord, reign forever. Why do you forsake us for so long? Restore us to yourself, Lord, that we may return. Renew our days of old. So he's asking, bring us back, unless you have utterly rejected us forever. So he's asking him, because he doesn't know, he's not going to get an answer necessarily. So he's asking him, please bring us back, unless you've rejected us forever. And if that be the case, by the way, he, in the first 3 chapters, he really kind of went over and over again about how the nation has sinned against him. So if the Lord has rejected them forever, I don't think in any way, shape, or form Jeremiah is saying there's blame to be gotten, right? God is still good, even if he rejects them forever, because if he rejects them forever, it is what they deserve for turning away from the Lord. That's how he ends Lamentations. So again, there's not really a positive, there's not necessarily a super hopeful. He's just reaching out and asking God to deal with them. All right, now we're moving down. This is a prophecy from a guy named Obadiah. And we don't necessarily know where he is. He doesn't say where he's coming from. He says what his name is, but we don't know if he's an exile in the nation of Babylon, or if he's one of the ones that's scattered through another area, or if he's one of the ones that lives in Jerusalem. So we don't have any of that information. All we know is his account, and this is against Edom. So this isn't even against Babylon. This is against Edom, which was a neighboring nation. So the vision of Obadiah. So Obadiah has a vision, and it says, this is what the Lord says about Edom. So he gets this vision from the Lord about Edom. Now, background, if you haven't been with me, Edom is another name for Esau. Esau is the brother of Jacob. So Jacob and Esau were twins in the womb with Isaac and Rebekah. And then Edom was the older brother, but Jacob was sort of the wily brother that took on the mantle of the oldest brother, right? He took the birthright of Edom/Esau. And so Edom has sort of been living, he has not been following the Lord, although he was a child of the covenant. Like he was a child of the covenant because the covenant was with Isaac. And so he was one born kind of into the covenant, but he gave it away. He turned away from it, and Jacob kept it. Jacob is the father of the 12 sons of Israel. So just a little bit of that detail if you guys didn't remember all of that. So they've been interlinked for, thousands of years, right? Because Jacob and Esau were brothers probably back in, 4000 BC. So they've been those two nations, cities, towns, whatever it might be, have been linked for thousands of years as brothers. And so Edom consistently comes up against Jacob, right? They're pretty much perpetually fighting. But God has chosen Jacob to be the ambassadors, right? Because Jacob took the birthright and Edom gave up the birthright. So it says, we've heard a message from the Lord. An envoy was sent to the nations to say, rise, let us go against her in battle. So it sounds like they're calling out to the nation of Judah or the nation of Jerusalem or the nation of Israel, whatever it might be, to go up against Edom. Now, is it when they're in famine and desolate? I don't know. So I'm not necessarily too sure about this, but it does say that they're calling, it seems, the Israelites out to go up against Edom. He says, I'm going to make you small. You're going to be utterly despised. The pride of your heart has deceived you. So you think you're everything, but you're not. It has nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. And God says, I'm going to bring you down. And then he says, but how will Esau be ransacked? So they're going to get Esau ransacked. But how Esau will be ransacked and his hidden treasures are going to be pillaged. So they're going to take everything from him. All your allies will force you to the border. Your friends will deceive you and overpower you. Those who eat your bread will set a trap for you. So like your friends, your neighbors, everyone around you is going to come against you. And it says, but you're not even going to know. Like you're not even going to recognize it's going to happen. And in that day, will I not destroy the wise men? So he's going to take out the top guys in Edom. So then everybody else is kind of upset because obviously they get rid of all their sort of their number one guys. It scares everybody else. And it's because of, in the next verse, verse 10, because of the violence he did against Jacob. On that day, you stood aloof while strangers carried off all of his stuff. You did nothing to help. Now, there's this delicate balance, right? Because the Lord gave Israel over to Babylon, right? However, even though he gave him over to Babylon, he says there was a responsibility of Edom to not make fun, to not stand and watch, but to come to the defense, right? And because they didn't, because they stood there and they laughed and they made fun of them and they said, you know, you weren't good enough and you didn't do anything right and you deserve this. Because of that, they are being punished for it. He says, you shouldn't wait at the crossroads to cut down the fugitives, nor hand over the survivors to the day of trouble, right? It says, you should not march through the gates of my people in the day of their disaster, right? Edom is doing all of this. They're watching, they're standing at the crossroads, they're there to kill him on the way out, right? So they might not be perpetuating the violence, but they are there to sort of like plunder and take any gains from it. So it says, the day of the Lord is near for all nations. As you have done, it will be done to you. Just as you drank on my holy hill, so all the nations will drink continually from you. But on Mount Zion will be deliverance, and Jacob will possess his inheritance. So I know Jacob is far away now, but don't worry. Jacob is going to possess his inheritance. You should have been there to help. Jacob's going to possess his inheritance. Esau will be a stubble, and they will set him on fire and destroy him. There will be no survivors from Edom. The Lord has spoken. And then it says all of these other areas that are going to occupy the territory of Edom. So they're talking about the Negev is going to come into the mountains of Esau, are like this really beautiful place. And all these people are going to come in and they're going to take over it. The company of the Israelite exiles will do it. Some that were from Canaan, some that were from Zarephath. It says deliverers will go up to Mount Zion and govern the mountains of Esau, and the kingdom will be the Lord's. So he's going to take it over and he's going to rule it from here on out. That's the prophecy of Obadiah. That's it. It's just one chapter. So that's all we get. That's all we hear from him. And we don't ever hear from him again. All right, so let's go into some history. This is the last little section that we have. And these last sections are all really similar to each other. And so we're just going to go into this little historical information that happened. So, okay. So here we are. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, appointed this guy, Gedaliah. So I just want to go over who he is. Way back when, a couple generations ago, Josiah was king. Don't know if you guys remember Josiah was king. So Josiah was king, and there were some helpers helping out, and they found the book of the law. And in finding the book of the law, they were then sent to go to that prophetess, Huldah, and go see if it was the real book of the law. Well, this guy, Shaphan, was one of the guys who was with them to find out. It was both Shaphan and his son. Now, the grandson of Shaphan is the one who is going to be the new governor. So just so we get a taste that, like, these are all people that have all been in around in and around the king, right? They've been helping out. So it's not like some random guy that was plucked off the street that Nebuchadnezzar was like, oh, well, Zedekiah is dead now, so I'm just going to pick some rando, right? Like he was part of the king's court, obviously was not one that was killed over in Jerusalem. And so he picked him um, in order to be the new governor. And essentially, he wasn't a king; he was just a governor, and he was really the go-between between Nebuchadnezzar and the people. And so he says at one point, like, "Listen, just want you to keep your cool. I want you to serve Nebuchadnezzar as we're supposed to. We're over here now, and we're going to serve him." But people had other plans. So let's see what those other plans were. It says. Jehoan, son of Kareah, and all the army of officers still in the open country came to him, and they were like, listen, there's this guy, and he's going to kill you. And he is like getting all these people to come against you. And the governor didn't believe it. He was like, no, don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen to me. And unfortunately, that wasn't true. So he came in, and he brought in all of his guys, and it says that he came in, and he took all of his guys, and he killed the governor. He assassinated him. This guy named Ishmael. And he assassinated him. He was from a different area, came in, assassinated him, even though Nebuchadnezzar put him on the throne. And then all of these other people were coming in from out of the area, like exiles were all coming back, and they were bringing back food. And this guy tricked them, ran out to meet them, and slaughtered a whole bunch of them as well. So like he came in and he just killed a whole bunch of people. I'm assuming he was taking over because this was in the nation of Jerusalem. So this was like still that little kingdom, but it was like the poorest of the poor people. I don't even know why he would want to come in and do that, but he came in and did that and decided that he was supposed to do that. And so there were a couple remaining guys that were exiles that were coming back in, and they were like, don't kill us, we have food. So he let them live, and then he just killed everybody else. And so it says, Ishmael, he went out from Mizpah, and he was like weeping, and he was crying, and they were like, don't kill us, here's all the food. And so then he threw them all in this cistern. So he killed them, and he threw all of their dead bodies in the cistern. And he made captives of everybody else. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, took them captive and set out to cross over to the Ammonites. So he took the people, he was taking them over to the Ammonites. Like everyone that was left, he was taking them over to the Ammonites. When Jehonan and all the army officers heard about it, they went out to go meet them. So now they're going against them, right? So the Israelites are going against the Ammonites. Ishmael eventually, unfortunately, escaped, and then Jehonan and all the army officers who were with him led the people back to Mizpah who survived. And then we come down to this like final verse 17. And they went on, stopping at Girith-Kerim on Bethlehem on their way to Egypt to escape the Babylonians because they had run away. Or they looked like they ran away. They were really taken away. So they go, they get taken away, they bring them back. They have to sort of like scoot their way around the Babylonians in order to get back into Jerusalem. It says they were afraid of them because Ishmael had killed Gedaliah, so the guy who was put in charge. Ishmael killed him. Nebuchadnezzar might be like, I don't know, he might take a punishment on them, right? Because this Gedaliah was supposed to be in charge, and they kind of dropped the ball on that. And so this is where we're ending today, right? Because Babylon appointed that guy as governor, and now he's no longer governor. So we're going to have to see what Nebuchadnezzar does. Does he come back in, and does he appoint somebody else to be governor over the nation? So right now, this little tiny area of Jerusalem is without a leader. Maybe Jehonan will be the new leader, but we'll have to see. So right now they are without anybody, and there's obviously some chaos going on. And so we need to keep reading and find out what happens tomorrow. If this has been a blessing to you guys, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And then I would like you to keep reading so we can come back and finish up tomorrow.